Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniXTCG. We're back with something I'm recording on Christmas, so you know what it is. But this is the Kaido breakdown. Now this one is a little, it's not different than the other ones. I did play a fair amount of games with Kaido. I just think it's more expansive. Like you're gonna see the tech section is a lot bigger than what the other ones are. So I'm gonna go through a list for you guys, and I'm gonna put a disclaimer. Like I said before, this list is tuned for red and green matchups, and it actually is weaker to blue matchups. And that's actually something that I do want to get into when it comes to not only the deck list, but the text. Past that, for you guys waiting on the raffle should be tomorrow's video. I'm going to do my best to get that out. I know lots of people have been waiting. A lot of people put in applications, or not applications, but tickets after the drop-off date. So I'm trying to sort through those as well. That's why something's taken so long. It is my first giveaway, and I don't want to just like leave everybody out in the dust. But like I also did put a cutout date because it's going to be before the holidays. You know, there's going to be some holiday stuff going on with friends and family, and I wanted to make sure I can get this done in a timely order, so bear with me. That being said, let's jump over to the split view, and we will go over everything I personally think you need to know about playing Purple Kaido in set 1. So here we go. I'm not even gonna take the time to spread out the list right here in real time. We're just gonna have it all out. There are a few modifications from my old list. One, I went down on Black Maria, and I think I went down on one more card in here to go up to 2 Black Marias, the bigger blockers, because I wanted a bigger blocker that could stick and want to be killed by weenie removal. But we're going to talk about Kaido right here. So Kaido has its pluses and its minuses. One, Kaido, like I said before, is the only deck that manipulates Dawn the way it does. And actually, I just wanted to say real quick, because I almost got ahead of myself, if you want to support the channel, think about hitting that subscribe button, like the video, share it if you want to, comment so we get a forum discussed, and then yeah, you can also come over to the Universe X Discord, link will be in the description. But that being said, Kaido is the only deck that is able to manipulate its Dawn up and down. You minus it for powerful effects, you can plus it using cards like Onigashima, and in this deck also Jack, and you know, Thunder Bagua, things like that. So that's pretty much the cool side about this. Now, Kaido offers what no other deck in the game offers, and that's at hand easy removal, point and click destruction. That card gotta go, get it out of my face. So that automatically puts him on the pedestal in terms of utility. Now, what it makes up for in big bodies, as well as point and click destruction, it takes a massive hit in terms of consistency. Kaido is the only deck right now that does not have a top 5 searcher or some sort of rearranged top 5. You are at the mercy of, I think, 3 or 4 cards that have you draw. Queen being the best of them. You draw 2, you trash 1. Excellent card. Sasaki from the starter deck, you Dawn -1, you draw 1. Ulti Mortar, you draw 1, but you Dawn -2 for 2k on the counter. And then All-Star Disaster, you pay 4 to ramp a Dawn and draw 1. Hefty, but you do ramp and you draw. So if you have a bad card, if you have a bad hand, and your next couple draws aren't any better, you're staying with a bad hand, and you just got to make the best of it. Now, that's actually just really rough and makes me kind of peel away from the deck. This deck is out of any deck in set 1, this is the deck where you have to most intensely look at your starting hand, because it's going to, for the most part, dictate how the rest of your game goes. The other thing that's pretty wild is that Kaido does have big bodies and it has destruction, but all these big bodies don't have counter costs, and because it doesn't have top 5 searching, you have to saturate your list with cards. That's why most people are running like 3 to 4 of these, 2 to 4 of these, like because you need to see them, but you can't guarantee that you're going to search top 5 for that extra reach, so you have to make sure that you can just draw them off the top. But the more cards you put in your deck without counters, the more susceptible you are to people just chipping you with 6k and 7k swings. So pluses and minuses, I think the minuses kind of outweigh the pluses, but that's just me. Now let's talk about matchups. Versus red, right? You have to take the role of the control. You have to block hits when you can. You have to immediately make sure that the following turn you clear up threats. When they leave things on board, you need to be swinging into them with your leader. You need to be blowing them off the board with your cards. You need to be making sure that these things happen. In this matchup, very often it is very rare that you get to use this because they can rush you down low enough, and they have rushes. Like, you know how stupid you're gonna feel if you're at 2 life and you hit somebody with a 6-drop Kaido and then they play Zoro and Luffy on their turn along with their leader swing. That's literally actually how it goes. Leader swing for 6k. Oh crap, I only have a 2k in hand, I'm tapped out. Drop a 2k. Okay, cool. Zoro. Turn him sideways for 6k again, or attach a Dawn to him 7k. Yeah, I'll take that. Okay, Luffy. I'll put him down and I'll swing for 7k. Crap, I'll take that. Now you're sitting at a position where you have no life and you untap and you get 1 swing with Kaido and you only have 6 Dawn. Well, no, you're going up to 7 Dawn, but 7 Dawn could play you something like this, which would kill the Zoro while this kills the Luffy on swing. But at the end of the day, you're just really asking for them to just see another Zoro and swing past your board for game. So it kind of gets a little rough. So against red, you don't really play this. Early game, I would block. Mid game, I would start using my 2Ks when they start trying to chip you for 6s, because the world will do that. Late game, you've got Blast Breath and Thunder Bagua, and hopefully you're removing their threats and chipping them down one by one. So red is pretty straightforward, but I think red is the one that gives you the most trouble. Red is the most likely color to get under your guard and beat you down before you can get established. Next, we're going over to green. Green is a tug of war because I think either deck can win. If you were able to destroy green's board presence and wall up, you will dominate green. And if their field ever tries to get froggy, you can make them jump with the 10-drop Kaido, blow up their board and kill them. But you have to use 10-drop Kaido when you have 3 life or so. If you get to a point where you're at 2 life or even worse, 1 life, yeah, there's no way you're dropping this card, because the moment you drop this card, I am putting all 7 of my Dawn underneath my kid. I'm swinging at you once for 12k, you're taking your last life, and then I'm putting 3 of them to the side, trashing a card, and swinging at you for 12 again for game. So this becomes a very risky bout, because the kid should be trying to push you to a point where you can never 10-drop their board, because it would mean death the following turn. And you as the Kaido player are fighting for tempo, trying to not get down to that point so that they can never build a board too big, because it would mean a 10 drop for a board that they cannot set up again for 2 to 3 turns. So that's a lot. Yeah, green is a struggle. Make sure their board's cleared, much like red. You know, blow up their stuff when you can. Blow up the primary targets, swing on the primary targets. Try not to give them a lot of life from hand, because once you start hitting the end of the game, you can start trashing your Dawn to take the top of their, putting your Dawn in the Dawn deck to trash their life, and then making sure your big bodies apply the rest of the pressure. You can normally put somebody in a 2-turn clock if you have 2 big bodies on, because you can swing with your leader for big damage, -7, and then you can swing with 2 big bodies, and then usually leave them at 1 life or 0 life. And if you're running a card like this, you're likely going to be able to 7-drop or -7 them again, and those are disgusting turns. The turn where you can go back up to a certain amount of Dawn and just be like, okay, well, you don't have any blockers on board, so -7, I'm swinging with this 9k body and this 10k body or this 12k body. You're generally just going to clean up the game right there. But it is a fight for tempo, and that's just something you're gonna have to feel out. Maybe I'll get some games on camera, but there's no real answer to how do you go about that matchup. You need to protect your life and clear their board. Those are the only generic things I can give you. Meanwhile, as a green player, you're gonna wanna aggress as hard as possible while maintaining your life, because once they stick one of these, you're on a clock. You're blocking them, and the blockers can be snatched away at almost any time, or you're taking the damage, and that's rough too. For the mirror match, it's a game of tempo. You guys can destroy each other's cards up until you start playing boss cards. When you start playing boss cards, you get out of each other's reach. Not even 9-drop Kaido can kill 7-drop King. He can kill 6-drop King though, so remember that. And then the first person to nuke generally is the first person to lose, because if your nuke gets answered with a nuke, you now need to have another nuke, which you can't play for 2 more turns. So for 2 turns, this guy's just going to be able to take life. So really, you want to save yours for theirs. You want to make a board so juicy they have no purpose, they have no choice. but to hit you with the 10 drop, and then you have to play your 10 drop. And what that involves is you playing bosses, because like I said, up until your boss cards, you guys can go tit for tat on destruction for these cards. So you want to build up a field with boss cards juicy enough from the 10 drop, then you want to 10 drop them in return, and then you want to try to take the game from there. So it's a battle for tempo and destruction. You know how the mirrors go. You know your own deck. You have to know your own deck and how to play against it. Then last but not least, there's blue. And blue is a little rough for this particular build because I don't have the normal king, and I'll explain that later. But with the blue, you're going to be able to play another type of like tempo. With blue, they can wall you out late game, but what they can't do is take this a singular decisive time and still wall you out. So against blue, you get to be very, very, very aggressive. Because one, they're gonna have to block you at some point. When you start putting out your boss cards, it is block or take damage. So unlike other decks where you're like, okay, I'll swing, I'll block, and I'll just hit these cards up until my guy's too fat. This isn't like that. You swing with a 10-drop Kaido, they can have a level up beam and level up mellow. It doesn't matter. Level up mellow is not getting a 4K blocker out of freaking Kaido's range, and so they're gonna have to neg 3 cards in hand or let it die. So they'll run out of blockers against you. But for you to swing on very, very risky things, like swing with a 6K leader so they go up to 7K on something. Swing with a 7K king so they go up to 8K on something. Okay, nuke the board. Make them waste resources in hand, then nuke the board. You can kind of overcome it. And there are some turns where you can pinch them. If they hit you with a Mihawk for any circumstance, slam them with a Kaido the next turn. You just got their biggest swinger out of the way and reset the board and make sure that you now have the biggest swinger. So yeah, blue can be a rough matchup. I think blue, when it plays well enough, naturally can have a good favorable matchup if you're playing Dofi, not Crocodile. But I do think that the 10 drop is just the equalizer. Both of you guys are trying to go late game, build boards. 10 drop Kaido will come down and clap that strategy up. And then yeah, those are the current matchups. Some fringe matchups. Against a blue-green Crocodile or blue-purple Crocodile, you're not going to be having a good time. They are able to combo quite high using the Crocodile SR, as well as just the way the deck is crafted to be to just cantrip. But against Law, you just control the board. You really do. Like, you have to see some blockers. I did lose to a Law. I thought I was ahead the entire game, but I couldn't draw any more blockers, and I just got chipped away. But you can control their board pretty well. Now, last thing I'm going to say is Queen's best card in this deck by far, followed by Onigashima. And now let's talk about some techs that you see people running, and we'll move on past there. So the first one I'm going to go into is one that most people run at 3, if not 4, but you don't see me running any, and that is King. The reason why I don't like King, he is a 6 cost 7K, and that stat line is very important, but in terms of what he does, I actually don't like his effect. He kills a cost 4 or lower, but essentially anything that he can kill, Who's Who can kill. And anything that he can't kill, Who's Who also can kill. Who's Who is 3,000, not 7,000, but Who's Who also costs half the Dawn. So I personally like relying more on Who's Who for certain targets in the matchups. Who's Who in versus Red can destroy Zoros, Sanjis, Namis, Nikos, and that's a lot. Who's Who versus Green can destroy Momos, Bonnies, Killer Blockers, Beiges, Okikus, which again, that's a lot. In the blue matchup, you're killing things like Perona, which is really just happening if it happens off the trigger. But if you're pulling the trigger intentionally, you can kill things like Teaches, you can kill things like Doflamingo blockers, small things, but things that could get in your way or things that could swing next turn. Now, the only deck this suffers against is kind of the mirror, because in the mirror, you're really just destroying blockers. But even that has its place. If you don't have the Dawn to successfully use a King, you can always play a Who's Who and kill a blocker. And in which case, that 3 is going to be better than paying 6 for it. Even if there's the body for it, that's just personally what I think. I want to know your comments in the background. But I just feel like, what 4-drop targets are there? In blue, that's the best chance you got. Boa Hancock, Gecko Moria, Mihawk. Those are all really good 4-drop tech. So if your meta is blue heavy, I would run King at 4. But if your meta is red and green heavy, I don't think this King particularly does it better than this. Next card. Yeah, what is it? Fuku Rokuju? Yeah, Fuku Rokuju. He is pretty cool. He's just a 6-drop for 8K. He is thick and 8k is really rough to deal with. If you see Onigashima, you're going to be able to drop him on your turn 3 no matter whether you go first or second, and his 8k stat line is going to make him a bruiser. Next you got Ulti. Ulti is just you pay her for 2, you play her for 2, you pay an additional 1, you ramp 1. So for 3 she's going to ramp 1, and it comes into play in rest. It's pretty cool for Dragon Ball players. It's the objection of the deck. And if you don't see Onigashima, she's essentially what Onigashima is going to do. She's a free, she's essentially a 1-turn Onigashima. This costs 3, you tap it. This costs 2, you pay an extra 1, and you get both of them are going to give you a Dawn and rest. So she's really just a 1-shot Onigashima, and that's sometimes what you need to get into your better things, especially when you don't see Onigashima. But if you do see Onigashima, this is going to hyper ramp you. Next, you got Basil Hawkins. For 4, you play him, you add a Dawn and rest it, so it's basically just 1 more energy to play this with 1k less attack, but it's also a trigger. So if you get hit and it flips out, you're just going to play him and get a free Dawn. You can stack a bunch of triggers in this game for this deck to make that a quick reality. You got Jack. This is actually pretty cool. On attacking, you Dawn -1. Your opponent has to trash a card from hand. Seems a little weird up front, but the fact of the matter is he's a 4K, meaning that you don't have to do damage with him, meaning that he can take a card from your opponent's hand and not actually do damage, which is paramount to hand control. Also, in a simplified game state, you can start pecking away at cards when they barely have 3 cards in hand. And in a worst case scenario for your opponent, let's say they don't have anything but 1 card in hand, or 0 cards in hand, you can swing with a leader knowing that you're going to get neutral in for 5. They take a card in hand, immediately swing with this guy. -1 Dawn. They drop the card they just picked up. Pass. They draw to 1 card, and then they have to see if they can do anything to your board besides pile on leader and swing. So very neat. Has different roles throughout the game. I like it. Then you have page 1. This guy, when he's on board, you can pay Dawn to be able to swing on a active mode character. It's cool, but I just don't really see myself paying 4 for this. It's a 4 for 5,000, easily wiped by lots of removal. It can be tapped by a Kiku, it can be killed by Jet Pistol, it can be bounced back. There's a lot of things. And I guess if you want to play page 1, you can play Uta into play, or not Uta, Ulti into page 1, but I just think that's a waste of a 2k. So for the most part, nah, I'm not really feeling this card, but some people do. Next, Ulti Mortar. Dawn -2, it costs 1, you're going to go up by 2k for the counter, and you're going to draw a card. I guess that's cool. Not cool enough though. I think -2 Dawn for 2k is crazy. It's only half of Blast Breath for 2 times the Dawn cost in the minus section for it, all for you to draw 1 card. Don't like it. But if you're in the trigger type deck where you're running 4 of these and 4 of these and 4 all-star disasters, getting hit and having this slip out your life is just going to give you a straight extra Dawn. So lastly, we got Brachio Bomber. Brachio Bomber is going to cost 6 to blow up something 6 or less, very strong removal, and then you're going to add a Dawn card from your Dawn deck to the field as active. And then if it gets triggered, you're going to do the same thing, minus the distraction. You're just going to flip a Dawn card from your Dawn deck into your area as active. Very nice. So you have multiple cards that ramp you from life. Ramp you from life. There's multiple ways you can go about this. You know, you can be an aggressive player with this deck, and if you're an aggressive player with this deck, you're going to be much more prone to swinging, bashing people's heads, and playing these rush cards, playing the board if you need to, doing your thing. You can play it as a control deck like I do. I sit back behind blockers and I pick off your board and I close you out by chipping at your life with my trash effect before finally going in for the kill with one of my bigger cards. You can go the way of that PPG guy that did a bunch of ramp, where he literally was just like, oh, you hit me, I got a Dawn. Oh, you hit me, I got a Dawn. Oh, you hit me, I got a Dawn. Okay, we're at 10 Dawn, 2 turns early, so let's just wipe your board and just keep it moving. And that's actually pretty cool too. You can't fault him for that. So I think that there's a lot of different ways to build this, and because of that, there's no real right or wrong way. I definitely built mine for green and red at my meta, but I would build completely differently if I wanted to take down the purple. If I want to take down a purple, I might play 4 of these. I would definitely have 4 of the normal kings, and then I would take these out. So maybe 4 normal kings and 1 of the new kings, maybe 3 of these. Like we gotta see, but you definitely have to tune the deck differently for blue. And for the mirror match, I found this list was doing pretty well, mainly because I have blockers. I'm still running. I'm not gonna clog as much as them. So when you're doing these weird chip shots, I generally have a little more counter. And then on top of that, if this lands, until they 10 drop, we're playing a different speed. We're playing the same deck, I'm playing faster. So that's kind of how I feel about it. At the end of the day, I don't really like Kaido because Kaido doesn't have the consistency that the other decks do. No top 5 searching, no nothing like that. And it becomes a matter of hoping that your draws are really good after you see your opening hand. And you can mitigate that by playing 4 of every card you need to see. But you got to understand, like, 4 of this 6-drop king, 4 of this Kaido, 3 or 4 that, like, you're gonna draw brick. You're gonna dead out at some point. You have 4 of these guys, and these guys are funny. You just see 1 early game, and then 4 more of them, even though you only run 4 like mid game when you draw their value cards. You're gonna see none of them all game. It's one or the other. So this is that. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the description. But these are my matchup guides about Kaido, talking these things. Kaido has a bunch of 2Ks, so sometimes it looks like your opponent's over comboing, but you're saturated. I've got literally, what, 11 here, and it could be up more. But Kaido has some very, very powerful, like, event cards. I know personally, in some of my games, like, since, like I said, I kind of play it controlly and Wally, and I break them out, there were games where I would be like, okay, well, we have all 10 Dawn, okay? I'll use 7 Dawn to play a body and not use an effect. Or, you know, I'll use a certain amount of Dawn to play blockers. And then I'll just take 7 of these Dawn and I will flip them to burn you for 1. After burning you for 1, I can Onigashima tap to put this in my turn. We go Kaido, put this in. And then what happens on your turn? Well, you swing at me and I tap 2 for Thunder Bagua. My health is low enough to where I get another Dawn. Then my next turn, we are able to untap everything, get 2 Dawn. Cool, Onigashima. And now we can play another turn, but at the end of that turn, we can -7 you again, knowing that we're going to get another Dawn back from Kaido. And if you have Thunder Bagua in hand again or Blast Breath, you're actually going to be able to block an attack and go up for 1. Then next turn, you're going to be going up to 2. And then the third turn, you can Onigashima 1 here. And if you so chose, if you had like 3 bodies on board, you could hit them 1 more time after doing what you need to do with this Dawn. Hit them 1 more time for a 7 cost. And that is insane. I did that last week in the mirror. I -7 him 3 turns in a row, and then was like, okay, cool, that's tight. And then this guy will make this Dawn, which is your Blast Breath Dawn if you need it. So that's, like, there are multiple ways to play this, but I really do like the interactions between Kaido and Thunder Bagua and your -7. It's really cool, but it may not even be the most optimal way to play. I can fully admit that. So let me know what you guys think of the how to play Kaido vibes. Let me know if you have any questions in the description, and like I said, you can always like, subscribe, comment, and we will keep growing this community. And it's been an awesome ride so far. So thanks. Hope you guys had happy holidays, and I'll see you next time.